Well, here's a sample of some of the paints that I use. This is for airbrushing. These are the Model Air paints. I've got some enamel paints that are testers, old school model paints. And then I've got some acrylic paints. These are the Americana type of paints that I use for general purpose painting. And they've always been in bins. It's been hard to see what I had. So I decided I would use Fusion 360 and my Onefinity CNC to design this paint holder. It is very versatile because it's got 3 tiers and you can change the hole sizes to make room for different types of paints, but use the same basic holder. For instance, here is a holder that I made for my Model Air paints, and it's exactly the same dimensions as this one right over here, but the holes are smaller and there's more of them to accommodate these types of paints. So if you would like to learn how I built this modular paint storage system, then watch my video. Alright, let's take a look at my design in Fusion 360 for this paint, hobby paint holder. As you can see, there's just only a few parts here. I've got 2 side supports, a bottom layer, and then these levels here, these platforms, and the holes are all pre-done. For this one in particular is for the Americana hobby paints. So just showing you what it looks like here. I just modeled it up so that it all fits together. There's these tabs and slots. There's some holes along here on both sides, so you can join these together if you have multiple sets. And just shut off my platforms here. You can see that let me get rid of that guy too. So there's a bottom layer. This is all 1/4 inch MDF, which for my MDF that I got, it's 5.9 millimeters thick. So I modeled all this exact same thickness. And then let me just turn on that guy there. And then you can see the different platforms. They just plug right into there and then they get glued in, they get snapped in. And then you're good to go. So once you've modeled it, what I did next is I took each of the parts and I laid them flat out. I'll just go to my design space here first. I laid them all flat out like that. And you have to make sure that once they are flat, that they're actually on the same plane, that some of these might be a little bit higher than others, so make sure that they're all on that same plane there. All right, this is going to be using up least amount of MDF sheet, so that's why I put it in that orientation. So technically these should all fit together. However, since you have a round bit and you're cutting out 90-degree angles, you can see that there's this little fillet in here. These are dog bones. You have to model them all in, but luckily in Fusion there's a really easy way to do that. I'm not going to show you how to download this plugin, but I'll put a link in my description that shows you how to add that into Fusion 360. So it's pretty awesome. All you have to do is click on it. You have a dog bone menu that comes up here. You just put in your tool diameter, and I'm using a 1/8 inch tool, so that's 0.125 inches. And I've got it set to normal dog bone. And all you do is you just click on a surface like that, and then you just click OK, and it will go through and put dog bone fillets in exactly where you want them. So you can see that they're all in here. So that way this slot here can fit nice and snug into here, right up to the corners, so it all fits together properly. All right, so once that's all in, you can make this as a master, and then all you have to do is redo the holes on these ones to make a different orientation for, say, your Model Air paints or your Alclads or whatever other kind of sets that you have. So then we just switch over to the manufacturer space, and I've got my setup here. I'll just show you that. All I have is, and I'm just learning as I go. I've done a lot of trial and error, and this is what seems to be working right now. I didn't have to select a machine. I did select milling here. My model orientation and stop box points are set up here. So all I did is I clicked on each of these to show that it's going to be these things that I'm going to be running off of. And then I put my origin way over here on the left where I wanted it for my CNC. For the stock, I put 0 millimeters to leave, and right now it's set to 5.9 millimeters thick, as you can see down here. And in one of the cases where I made this, it cut out perfectly. In another one, because the MDF was just slightly thicker, it didn't cut all the way through, which is something I don't really mind because I can clean that up with my sander. That way I'm not spoiling my spoil board as much, and it works out pretty good anyways. And then over here, stock width and depth, you can see how many millimeters wide it is and tall it is. So you just have to make your stock that it's going to be cut out of just a little bit bigger than that when you set it up. So that's my setup. I'm going to cancel that. I'll go into my my milling path here. This is a 2D contour. So up here, I just picked 2D contour because it's pretty basic. And for my tool, you can see here that I have selected a 1/8 inch flat end mill. This is a down cut bit. My upcut broke, so I'm just using that one. And then for the rest, I just left it, all my feeds and speeds. For the geometry, I went in and I clicked on the bottom edge of all of the places that I want this to cut. So I had to go through and just select them all, and that's what I did for the geometry. And then I also wanted tabs, so you can see that there's a tab there, there's one there, there's actually two on each circle, and then over here there's one down here, and then one over here. So I've got them in different spots, and what I did is I said at points rather than allowing the software to select it for me. And I made my tabs 3 millimeters wide, and since my stock is almost 6 millimeters thick, I made the tabs 4 millimeters thick. I find so far that's working out okay. For the heights, what I did is, you can see my heights here. I start with the bottom height. My bottom height is the stock bottom, so at the very bottom of my stock there. Now, I didn't leave any offset. I could do a negative offset here if you wanted to cut slightly deeper, if you're finding that it's not cutting all the way through your stock. And then my top height is this one right here, and then I just left my feed height and my retract height where it was. So that's my heights. Then for the passes, all I did was I basically left all this as is, but I added in multiple depths. I don't want the bit to come in here and cut the whole thing out at one go. So I said I want it to come down 2 millimeters at a time, and a finishing step down of 0.2 millimeters. So that is what I set that to. Still messing around with it, but it seems to be working the way it is right now. For my linking, I think I just kept everything the same, except I put in a ramp, 5-degree ramp, and so it comes in at an angle, and I can just show you how this all works here. So let's go to my simulation, and I'll just play it. So see it cutting. Takes about 3 or 4 passes to get one of the parts cut out. And there we have it. So now I can just get my stock ready, cut it out, put it on the CNC. So let's go to the workshop and check it out, see how it cuts. All right, I've cut my piece of MDF already, roughly the size, and I find to mount it onto my spoil board, the best way, I've tried different things, clamps and tape and whatnot, but lately I've been using a little brad nailer. It's actually a pin nailer. They're headless pins. They're not very long, so I just shoot them in the corners. There we go. Pick up my little spacer. And we're ready to zero the Z-axis. Okay, so we're just zeroing the Z. Okay, that's good. Put away my probe. Put my dust boot back on. I will drive this over to where I roughly want to start. Right about there is good. I'll zero that. And I'm good to go. So I've already got my file loaded in. This is for the Model Air shelf platforms and paint shelf. And turn on my rotor. We'll start. All right, she's done. Took about 27 minutes or so. Moved the CNC out of the way, and as you can see, it looks like it did a pretty good job. But let's take this off and see how it looks. So just put our cutting knife underneath here. Pop that up. There we go. First things first, go through and pull up all of the little brad nails so we don't cut ourselves. They come up pretty easily. Awesome. All right, so on the back side, it looks like it cut through pretty well. So I set this to exactly 5.9 millimeters, and just a hair, you can actually open it up with your finger there. Looks like it turned out pretty good. So what I'll do next is I'll pop these all out. I'll cut the tabs off, and then we'll assemble it and see how well it assembles. All right, I've cut all the tabs off, cleaned it up with the sander a little bit, and let's just assemble it and see how it fits. Well, it looks like the tolerance is good. It's a pretty good fit. This set here is exactly the same platforms as this set here, except the holes are smaller. So you can mix and match the platforms. And these ones are set up for the Model Air and the Game Air airbrush paints. There we go. So all I need to do now is glue it together. You can stain it, you can paint it, and because they're all exactly the same dimensions, you can put them in a row and screw them together too if you want. The neat thing about compartmentalizing this is that if you needed just to use these guys, you could just grab them, take them into the workshop, garage, or whatever, and then they're a little bit more portable. So it looks like it turned out pretty good. I'm going to do another set for all of these tester paints. They have a square bottom on them, but I'll do the same sort of thing, and I might just put a lip on the bottom so they sit into a square hole, and they're just positioned that way. Anyways, hope you like that CNC design, and if you want to make one of these, hopefully you can follow my instructions. You got this. Thanks for watching.